industry experts from powerhouse brands. Earned Summit, Building a Community by Tribe Dynamics.
Hi everyone, I'm Steph Wissink from Jefferies, and it's my pleasure today to have Moiz Ali with us, the founder of Native. And just going to begin by letting Moiz share a little bit about the origins of the brand, some of the things that made it unique, how it was inspired, and we'll get a little flavor for the brand ethos from Moiz telling the story about the brand founding.
Sure. So Native is a direct-to-consumer personal care company. We sell safe, effective, non-toxic personal care products that adults use in the bathroom every day. The first product that we launched with was a deodorant. We launched Native deodorant back in July 2015. And it really launched because of a personal need of mine. I guess there were two things that sort of combined to launch it. One was I would shop for deodorant at Duane Reade when I was living in New York City. And I would always buy Axe deodorant because they had gotten me with these commercials back when I was like 15 years old, like, you know, put on Axe deodorant and all these women will flock to you. That never happened, but I bought Axe deodorant for a really long time. But when I was waiting in line to buy it, I'd always read the back of the label of the deodorant and it'd be full of all of these ingredients I couldn't pronounce or read. And then around the same time that Native launched, my sister was expecting her first baby and she was telling me how she was using Dove. And so I was like, okay, you're going to start feeding your baby. You're about to have a baby. I'm not happy with my deodorant. This is probably a good time for us to like switch deodorants. And then I started searching for a natural deodorant and really couldn't think of a brand that resonated with me. And that was the genesis for Native. We launched the deodorant in July 2015. It was clear that there was product market fit pretty early on, but we also realized that our formula wasn't the best. We knew that the idea would work, we just didn't know if our product would work. And so we spent a bunch of time iterating on our product to make it better. And finally, when we made it substantially better, it was very clear to us that we had a product that was resonating with consumers. We saw great repeat purchase rate. We saw great reviews on our website and on Amazon. Native has grown from there.
That's awesome. So you talked a little bit about having to reformulate, reimagine, rethink the product itself, but what other negative thoughts or pushback from others did you get along the way? And how did you build your own confidence as a founder and entrepreneur to just take a leap of faith if you had?
Yeah, great question. I think from pushback that we got when we were building Native was from all over the place. My brother, who is probably like the largest influence on me in terms of becoming an entrepreneur, would always tell me that I had to out R&D the Unilevers and Procter Gambles of the world when it came to the product. And I'm like, they've got $1 billion to spend on this. I've got about $150. Like, how am I gonna out R&D them? But in reality, that's exactly what we did do. From external people would push me in certain directions that got me motivated and actually got me to improve the product. But at the same time, we had other external people telling us, hey, before you sell this business, and the business was ultimately acquired by Procter Gamble in 2017, before you sell this business, you're going to have to launch other categories. You can't just launch deodorant. You have to be in other categories and prove that this isn't a one-trick pony. We never did that. We sold and had only sold deodorant the entire life of the business. Other people told us that we had to be in stores before we could sell the business. Other people told us that we had to diversify our marketing channels more than we had before we sold the business. And so, there's always a lot of external factors from a lot of smart people and people that you trust telling you to do different things. And the reality is you sort of have to have the confidence of your own decision-making. And the reality is you should have that confidence. And that confidence is much easier to have in hindsight. I think when Native was growing, people were telling me that people would be like, have you thought about influencer marketing? And I'm like, I live and breathe this business every day. It's the first thing I think about when I wake up. It's the last thing I think about when I go to bed. And so, I've thought about influencer marketing. It didn't work out for us it's not something we're pursuing, whether we've tried it and it didn't work, or we haven't tried it and we don't have the resources or the time or the financial capital to do it. You got to listen to yourself and sort of trust your gut and say, hey, this is what's working and this is what's not. And I need to double down on what's working and avoid all of this noise. It's a lot easier to appreciate that in hindsight than it is going forward when you're like, I don't know if any of these decisions are right.
If you think back over the journey of founding, growing, developing, building, ultimately selling, Are there any pivotal moments when you think back and go, wow, if that wouldn't have happened, we wouldn't have succeeded like we did?
Yeah, definitely. The day we launched, I wasn't sure how big of a business this was going to be. The day we launched, we sold one deodorant, like one stick of deodorant, and I was like, I'm folding this business. Like, this isn't worth it. I'm like, that's we generated $12 in revenue today, and I probably made 50 cents. Like, that's not worth a day's effort. And then one of my friends, like, we launched through to the site in San Francisco called Product Hunt. And one of my friends is like, I know somebody who works at Product Hunt. I bet I can get you on there tomorrow and get you on the top of the page so you guys get more orders. And he did that. And then the next day we got 60 orders. And I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe this can be a business. I don't know. But like within the first 24 hours, I was sort of ready to turn the engine off. But 24 hours later, I was like, okay, I'm going to try. And then there was another time when we were like working on our product formula. This is, in 2016. At one point, all of the deodorant that we had manufactured melted en route from our manufacturing facility to our shipping facility. And so like I was randomly at our shipping facility, opened up a stick of deodorant, and the shipping facility was just in Oakland. It was really close, thankfully. And I was just randomly there for some reason. I opened up a stick of deodorant and I was like, this doesn't look right. And I put my finger in it, and it was like lotion. You touch the bottom of the deodorant container. It was not like hard. It was actually very soft. And so I was just like, okay, this business might be over now. Like we thought we had a good formula. We realized that we had to create a better formula, but like all of the deodorant that we have in this warehouse right now is melted. It's not good. It's not usable. And we have orders for hundreds more sticks that we're not going to be able to fulfill. So is this the end of the business? We had been working on a better formula for some time, and we'd been testing it among consumers. And, this is May 2016. I was just like, you know what, let's go with one of these formulas that we've been testing among consumers. I think this is the best one that we have in the portfolio of like different formulas that we've developed. But really it's push has come to shove and we need to launch with something new. And so we launched with a new formula in May 2016, faster than I would have liked. And in reality, the reviews on our website went up by an entire star. The repeat purchase rate went up from, 27% or so after 6 months to north of 50%. Like it was clear that we had developed a much better product. But both of those instances, I was like, I think the business is over. And you can sort of sit with that feeling for a few hours and it's okay. You can't sit with it for a month. If you sit if you have that feeling for a day, that's okay. Just get through it. I don't know if I would have been able to survive if I had that feeling for a month. Fortunately, it was very short periods of time. We were able to be like, you know what, there's a solution to this problem. Let's get through it and get to the other side. And once we got to the other side, we were like, okay, it's a very good idea that we did not stop doing this.
Talk about your support structure early on as a founder. Did you have a board? Did you have an advisory group? So when situations like that arose, you felt like you had a resource network to tap?
For first year of the business, we launched in July 2015. I was the only employee until June 1st, 2016. So there was a long period of time where there was nobody else at the company. There were a few people that were incredibly helpful in terms of helping me get through those rough patches. I mentioned my brother who was sort of pushing me to do R&D. He was fantastic. And then there were two investors that we raised money from. One was a guy named Paul Ferrers from Azure. He invested $250,000 into the business. He was the second check into the business. He was great. Anytime I had an issue, I'd call him, he'd pick up on the first ring and I'd be like, this is my problem. He's like, great, I'm moving things around my schedule. Why don't you his office was not far from my office. He's like, why don't you come down here or why don't we get lunch and we'll chat about this? And that was fantastic. And he never asked for anything. We had some other investors who were like, hey, Moiz, I want monthly updates on how the business is doing. We never provide. I was like, well, I'll give you your check back. We're not going to do that. And Paul was never that way. He's just like, I want to support this business and I'm here for you the way that you want me to be here. Whatever you need, I'm going to provide, but I'm not going to ask you for anything. And, from his perspective, it's got to be hard. He's got to manage a bunch of founders. I'm not sure how he knew what I needed, but he did. And then there was this other guy who is the founder of Thrive Marketing. He's the CEO of Thrive Marketing. His name is Nick Green. He was an early investor in Native as well. And he was great from a founder perspective, sort of knew what I was going through. We would chat on we both work weekends. And so we chat on Saturday for a couple hours, once a month. And it was great because I'd be like, hey, here are all my problems. He'd tell me about some of his problems. And it just made it feel like, I wasn't as lonely in the universe with the problems that I had. I felt like others had them as well.
That's really important to feel like you're not alone. So let's say one of the themes of the broader event is this idea of community building. And I'm curious if you can just give us one of your success stories in using influencers, how you thought about influencers as part of your brand building approach.
Sure. I think that for us, we were really we had limited resources and finite time. And so we were not focused on it until it became a thing of its own. I remember the first time we got sales was from somebody who had purchased our product and created a YouTube video on her own about why she was using native deodorant, and she sent it to me, and I was like, why would you have done that? It was back in 2015, and I was too stupid to know what she was doing for us, and I was like, why did you do all of this work? This seems crazy. And then I started looking at her website, and I saw that she was driving orders, and I was like, how is this work? What is going on? People are watching videos on YouTube about people using deodorant. That is not the case. That is not why I'm on YouTube. And then I realized that it was a thing, and we started investing more resources into it. And I would say we were smart about not spending too much and sort of not going after the A-list celebrities before we had the capital to. And we perhaps even more importantly, we were really lucky in that we had a lot of organic influencers talk about us. So I remember there was this Victoria's Secret model named Karolina Kurkova who talked in the New York Times about how she used native deodorant, and I was like, how are you you're this huge celebrity and in the New York Times, and you use our product. We had no idea you're talking about us. How is all of this happening? And so I think we were more lucky than we were smart about it. But ultimately, through the influencers that we cultivated and the large customer base that we cultivated, we were able to create this brand that we didn't know we were creating. It sort of happened by itself.
That's great. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and just talk about the experience of being approached and ultimately deciding to sell the company. So can you just bring us back to that moment when the call came?
Sure. The first call came, someone came knocking on our door back in February 2017. We ultimately sold the business to P&G in November of 2017. And so the first call comes in and we don't take it very seriously. And then the knock gets a little bit louder. And so we're like, okay, maybe this is something that we actually have to pay attention to. So we start talking to other people in the market, and we say, hey, look, the knock that came in wasn't the most synergistic acquirer. We're like, you don't sell deodorant. Why is this a good thing for you? And so we're like, look, if we're gonna sell this business, we have to talk to the right people, the P&Gs and the Unilevers of the world that are in the deodorant industry and understand the category and have businesses there already. And then it it was a long process, but it was also a real, from a founder perspective, it's both a scary process and an incredibly exciting process. You're like, oh my God, is this thing gonna happen? So in many ways, the apex of your company's trajectory, but in some ways, the nadir of your trajectory as well, because you're like, hey, I was going to become this massive CPG company. I've sold the business, and now my role as CEO is diminished because we're now part of a much larger organization. And so I sort of knew that going in. I'd sold a business previously as well, and so I had my eyes wide open. I was like, I'm getting involved with an organization that's a massive organization, and I'm going to be a very small part of that. I'm going to be a drop in the ocean, and am I going to be okay with that? The negotiation with P&G was great. What I really when you're a founder and you're trying to sell your business, aside from things like price and keeping your team and independence, one of the things they're worried about is deal certainty. Are you gonna you're basically the bride during this marriage. You don't want to be standing at the altar and nobody's walking down the aisle. And so I was afraid that was going to happen. And, afraid that was going to happen, certainly just generally, but P&G was like, look, there's a lot of deal certainty here. They started talking about what we would do post-acquisition, even pre-acquisition. We met with them multiple times. They were really straightforward. And then post-acquisition, it was very much what they promised. our team remained intact. We kept our office in San Francisco. We kept our independence. We made our own business decisions, and that doesn't always happen. And so I was very appreciative and grateful for like the way that P&G handled that. What happens after you guys get married, nobody knows what it looks like the day after the marriage. And here, the day after the marriage, I'm still a very happy bride. And so it was very grateful for the way the P&G team treated us, the independence that they provided us, like the knowledge and resources that they provided us were much more than I could have imagined. Like I was much happier post-acquisition than I thought I would have been.
So if you think back to that, what were some things that you advocated for that were not non-negotiables, but really things that tapped to your pride around the founding and establishment of this brand, things that you wanted to make sure were retained? Maybe it was, to your point, your team and your people. But if there might be some founders on the line right now going through negotiations with some big companies, what would you advise them to really be standing their ground on? What components?
Yeah, I think for us, it was things that were very easy to understand. Like our team, which was already small, P&G didn't have a large direct-to-consumer business. It's not like they're like, yeah, this is Amazon. We know exactly how to sell things online. We're going to bring all the people who are really good at selling things online to the native team. They were like, yeah, we need your team because you are doing something that we don't know how to do. So I think from the team perspective and independence perspective, like allowing us to make our own business decisions, as opposed to sort of coming in and saying, hey, Moiz, this business unit is suffering. We want you to create this product, or we really want you to create these scents, or you know what, now it's time to expand in this way. That was never there were never these mandates. There were influences, and people would tell me how they thought about our business, and I thought that was helpful. There were resources from an R&D perspective, from a marketing perspective, from a in-store retailer perspective that were second to none. But in reality, that independence, our independent office, independent decision-making and team were really important for us to maintain our DNA and our ethos in order to be able to succeed post-acquisition. But the thing that I'd say to other founders is you should what worked for us was we were on this trajectory and we had just gotten started. Our business was wasn't even 2.5 years old between the time of launch and the time of sale. It was a very short period of time. And so we had a lot more, there was a plan that we wanted to execute. We had all these visions that we wanted to take advantage of and execute and go into stores and launch other products and launch on Amazon and do all of these other things. And so we wanted that independence and that DNA. I think if we were launching a different business or a more mature business, I might have asked for different things. If our business was 20 years old and we had a team that was not necessarily growing, our business was growing significantly, materially, month over month. If our business was different, I would have been like, hey, maybe we need more of your R&D resources. We won't hire R&D internally. We'll use more of your resources. We won't hire our operations team, or we won't expand it here. We'll start using more of your resources. But instead, our business was not mature. And so that independence was necessary in order to grow the business. But I think it really depends on where you're at, who your acquirer is, in terms of what you should be asking for. And I would say, trust yourself. You've been living and breathing this business. Nobody's going to know the business as well as you will. So make the decisions that you think are right.
All right, so we have about 1 minute left. I'm going to put you on the spot. This is kind of a rapid fire question, but taking in all you've experienced selling two companies, when you start your next one, fill in the blank. I am going to be sure to, and I won't do blank.
This is a very personal thing.
Same mistake twice, right?
Yeah, sure. This is a really personal thing. I'm going to make sure that I start a business that doesn't consume my entire life. I feel like, I'm 35 years old now, and I've started business, I've been doing things that have consumed my entire life for a significant period of time now. And today I may be looking for a little bit more work-life balance, which is a really hard thing to say. Because when you talk to other people in San Francisco and New York, they're like, what are you talking about? Your business is doing well, could be doing way better if you just tried harder. And I'm going to be more conscious about that type of work-life trade-off, and be more willing to say, you know what, I'm okay with this person thinking that I'm an idiot, or thinking that I'm not executing well, in order to be able to enjoy family and friends and relationships. So I think I'm going to be more conscious when it comes to that. I also think from a marketing perspective or from a business perspective, I think I'm going to hire earlier, and I think I'm also going to trust my team more. I think like one of the things that at Native I felt like I didn't do a good job of was confide in my teammates. I think I did that with my investors and with family members, but with teammates, I was sort of like, hey, the business is going really well, but I don't have a lot of time to mentor you and to like foster this relationship. And that was a big mistake. I felt like at the end of it, I should have had that time and I should have made that time. And the business would have been better had I, because these people would have stepped into the holes that they realized were into the business. They were already trying to do that. And I just didn't support them. Like I didn't build the infrastructure needed to allow them to thrive. And I wish I'd done a better job of that.
That's a fantastic thought to end on.
Thank you.
We're going to end it
really
there.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, likewise. And congratulations, Moiz, on your sale. And best luck to you in the future. I know we're not done seeing you in the headlines.
That's right.
So,
thanks so much.
It was a pleasure. Pleasure to share the screen.
And
Kanya, I'm going to turn it back over to you and the Tribe team. Thank you, everyone.